Welcome back to the Self-Love Lounge. Hi, everyone. Today, we're talking about healing beyond trauma. Not just coping, not just surviving, but rebuilding. I have the amazing Dr. Godwin here with me. Dr. Godwin is a licensed therapist with nearly 20 years of experience, a background in psychology, marriage and family therapy, and a powerful personal understanding of what recovery can look like. If you ever felt like your past keeps showing up in your present, this one is for you. And before we start, nothing here replaces therapy. Also, we'll keep this conversation grounded, no graphic details. We're focusing on healing, support, and tools. Dr. Godwin, welcome to the Self-Love Lounge.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It is my honor to be here today.
I'm going to start by a couple questions. What pulled you toward psychology and family system work?
Well, I found myself drawn to people and trying to understand people's behavior, why they make the choices they make, why do they do what they do at a very young age. I started reading books on psychology at age 9, believe it or not.
Wow.
So it's kind of been a lifelong work for me, but I have never gotten bored with it. I am still fascinated by people and why do people do the things they do. So that's what started me. And then, of course, just really enjoying helping people and helping people work through difficult things.
Wow. 9. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you've spent nearly 20 years supporting clients. What themes show up most often across different ages and family dynamics?
So some of the things that I see commonly is people taking responsibility for others' feelings or taking it on themselves, thinking that it's their fault.
Yeah.
Having trouble trusting themselves or their instincts, feeling shame or guilt around setting boundaries, or even something as simple as saying no.
Yeah.
And then repeating different relational patterns, oftentimes from the family of origin. And what I have found is that all of these different things and more often go back to a rooted belief, something that we learned to believe in childhood that isn't necessarily true. We call it a negative cognition in therapy, or really it's a lie, something that's not true about ourselves. Examples of that might be, I'm not good enough, or I don't matter.
Yeah.
I'm not, other people's feelings and wants are more important than mine. Those are some of the common themes that I see that I end up working on in therapy.
So in a simple words, it's a learned behavior.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
And a learned belief.
Okay. So for someone who wonders, does this count as trauma? How do you define trauma in a way that's inclusive and accurate?
The simplest definition for trauma, I believe, is trauma is anything that overwhelms your ability to cope in the moment. And that can be different for different people. For some people, it might be something as small as a negative comment or criticism from someone. And for other people, it might take something bigger, like a gunshot or a car accident. But nobody else has the right to define your trauma. You can define your trauma yourself. And it's anything that causes you to feel flooded, to go into fight or flight, to not be able to cope in that moment, to feel overwhelmed. Then that is a trauma for you. And it negatively impacts your nervous system and the way your brain works and how you process life. It can form a lens that you see everything through. And that's how it creates these symptoms that follow you around until you go back to the root and you work on healing that original trauma, whatever it was.
But what if some people are delusional? They don't even know their own feelings. How do you help such going through such things? Yeah,
that's very difficult, because I believe that one of the first steps to changing or working on anything is awareness.
Yeah.
So when they're delusional, they don't have awareness. So it's very difficult. You can do some things as far as retraining the nervous system. You can have them engage in mindfulness and breathing techniques and somatic movement, yoga, and to kind of work on healing their nervous system even beyond their understanding. But as far as that deep level healing, I think there has to be a level of awareness.
Yeah. What are common ways unresolved trauma shows up in adulthood, even when people don't label it as trauma?
And this is very common. I think many people carry trauma around unconsciously. They're not aware. They haven't come to the realization yet that that's what it is, but it can show up as overthinking. A lot of people struggle with that, right? Hypervigilance, just carrying like a body tension with you all the time. Your body keeps the score, you hold the trauma in your body. And easily being startled or just kind of being watchful, that hypervigilance that comes from some sort of past experience.
Yeah.
People pleasing is another one. Feeling like you have to fawn and keep everybody around you happy in order to be safe. And it can be such an unconscious thing. You can be people pleasing and you just think you're a nice person and you don't understand really that it's about safety underneath. Having trouble relaxing is another one that I see a lot. And feeling like you're too much or you're not enough and just kind of swallowing your voice and not speaking up or not really being fully yourself with others. Those are some of the more common ways that I see it show up.
So it can impact the body, sleep, energy, digestion, and it can cause chronic stress and chronic diseases as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I believe we are mind, body, spirit, and these things all interact with one another. And so when you have emotional or mental trauma, it will show up in your body. If not resolved, it will. And it has been strongly linked to heart issues, autoimmune issues, digestive issues. I mean, yes, absolutely. All of these things are connected.
Wow. This is interesting because most people do go through these things, but they're not aware that it's connected to a trauma that happened to them earlier in life.
That's right. What people tend to do is they will treat the symptom, or they'll go to a physician, for example, and report their symptoms, and then the symptoms get treated, but oftentimes the root goes undetected. And so even if you treat I equate it to like a tree, right? You can prune off some leaves, but that disease is going to show up in the branch, or it's going to show up in other leaves. We'll have new symptoms pop up until we actually get to the root of the issue, which is usually a trauma.
Yeah. What's a normal reaction people shame themselves for, but it's actually a trauma response?
Freezing or shutting down in the moment. Sometimes people just freeze, their mind kind of doesn't work right. Their cognitive processes, their prefrontal cortex actually can shut down. And it is one of the survival mechanisms to freeze. And they'll be speechless. They'll beat themselves up and shame themselves later. Oh, why couldn't I think of anything to say? I looked stupid. I looked like I didn't know what I was talking about. And when they're calm and their nervous system is regulated, they have very good responses, and they know, oh, I should have said this and this and this. I knew the answer. For example, a student in class who feels put on the spot, not being able to come up with the answer for the teacher, but they know the answer. Or during the test anxiety can do this. Kids will just go completely blank mentally when they're taking a test. They know the information, but they can't report it for the test because of the anxiety. And so, people feel shame, but it's something that is a nervous system reaction that they really can't control.
This is kind of personal for me. When I was a kid, for example, if the teacher asked a question, I will freeze. Though I know the answer and I was really smart in school, but I was like 6 years old. Where do you think that's coming from? Do you think I had like unresolved trauma that I went through when I was younger?
Yeah, probably something in your family of origin where maybe you said the wrong thing and your parents shamed you or punished you for it. Yelled at you for it. And I mean, I'm not saying that your parents did those things, but that would be an example of why that might show up. So it could be
as simple as that. Because when we say trauma, people define trauma as something really huge, like you got physically abused in a very bad way or something really bad happened to you. But it can be as simple as someone yelled at you, or like.
Again, going back to the definition, anything that overwhelms your ability to cope in that moment. As a child, if your parents yell at you and you feel threatened, you feel that because, again, they're your caretaker. They provide your house, your food. You can't live or survive without them. So it very much is a survival thing when you're a child. So you feel that your livelihood is threatened. So if you go into survival mode, that is a trauma. If you feel overwhelmed in that moment. So yes, it can be. And we categorize traumas oftentimes in what we call a little t and a big T. Little t might be something like that. A big T might be you go to war and you're in combat. So there's different types of trauma, different degrees of trauma, but again, it's individually defined.
Yeah. And you can still go through trauma even if you're an adult.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Anybody can. None of us are immune to it.
That's interesting. Let's move to the family systems and breaking cycles. So when you say family systems, what does that mean in plain language?
Mm-hmm. It basically means that when you are in a family, and this doesn't have to be a biological family, it's whatever group that you grow up in, whether it's a group home, a foster home, a biological family of origin, that is its own little ecosystem. And so people have ways of relating to each other, patterns of communication, patterns of handling conflict, and that's the system. And you are affected by that system, not just by the individual people in the system, but by the system as a whole. And oftentimes we will learn those systemic patterns and then later repeat them in our own intimate relationships in our own families. As adults, we will go on and repeat those patterns unconsciously. Marriage and family therapists are people that are trained in systems theory. Social workers often are trained in systems theory. We look at not just the individual and what they're bringing into therapy, but we also take into account the system that they came from. And then even bigger systems. There's the family system, but then there are also systems in our society too, right? So there's levels of systems. But for family systems, it's referring to the family that you currently are living in or your family of origin that you came from and what systems are in place there.
This is very interesting.
It's pretty fascinating stuff.
The cycle can be caused by another system, which is not your origin family.
Yeah. If you think about systemic racism, for example, that's an example. Wow. But everybody has roles, family roles that they play. There are often unspoken rules in a family. You just know not to do things, even if no one explicitly told you. And you have to adapt to survive to things within the system. So those kind of things are what we look at when we talk about family systems.
Wow. So what are the signs that someone might be repeating a generational pattern, even if they promised themselves they wouldn't?
If you find yourself as an adult in a relationship that feels very familiar and you feel some of those same dynamics or patterns that you experienced as a child, even if you said, this is how my dad is, or this is how my mom, I'm never going to tolerate that from a partner, or I'm never going to be in a relationship like that. But then later you may find yourself within those same familiar places and situations. If you find yourself over-functioning or caretaking, like you've watched your parent caretake their partner, for example, and you find yourself in that situation. If you're avoiding conflict a lot, if you feel guilty about setting boundaries, if you say, I swore I'd never do this, but then you find yourself doing it, those are some red flags that you may be repeating some old patterns.
But let's say I did my part of work, like I did all the therapy, I'm trying to break the cycle, but I end up in the same environment that I went through when I was a kid, or the same conflict that, for example, that was going on in my household. But I did my part. Right. How is that connected to my generational cycle that I'm trying to break?
Right. Well, you're trying to break it, but maybe you haven't fully broken it. Oftentimes, we're in the process of trying to heal and recognize these when we get into a relationship. So sometimes we don't realize until further down the road, we're already in the relationship, and then we start to realize, oh, wait a minute. Wow, they remind me a lot of my parent, or I'm seeing these things. You were somewhere in the healing process, but not far enough along that you recognized it ahead of time. And so you get caught up in it that way. And it's not that you're not doing the work, but it's a long process. And how do you know when you're really ready? That's it's hard to know. So that's probably more likely the case of just not being quite healed enough yet to recognize that you're repeating the patterns.
And how do you think people can break cycles without getting stuck in blame or resentment?
Well, instead of saying who's at fault, who did this, who's to blame, look more at what actually happened. How did that affect me then? How is it affecting me now? What can I do about it? Let me just take responsibility for what I have control over. I can't change what happened, but just focus on understanding it so that you can work on it and change it for yourself today and moving forward, because we can't change the past. And it really doesn't serve anybody to get into a blame game.
True.
And if you let yourself sit in that, then of course you're going to be angry and resentful.
That's true. So you're saying we need to be aware. of our feelings. So let's move to the practical tools, 3 grounding tools someone can try this week or whenever they need, just to feel when they feel triggered or overwhelmed.
I like to use the 5 senses, which actually comes from the dialectical behavior model developed by Marsha Linehan, who I'm a huge fan of. If anybody wants to research her, she's awesome. But using basic, simple things like your 5 senses that you have with you all the time, so easy to use and simple, even for a child. Find something that you can smell that's calming and relaxing. You know, examples would be like vanilla, peppermint, spearmint, lemon, chocolate. It can be anything, but something that you have a positive association to that's calming your nervous system, because your nose is so close to your brain. It does calm your nervous system really quickly. Taste also, you know, just kind of savoring and mindfully enjoying some sort of candy or flavor food. Again, peppermint is a good option, chocolate, but really it can be anything. Running cold water on your wrist or splashing cold water on your face. Also, a major temperature change can shift your nervous system pretty quickly. Using touch, tactile, feeling of your clothing, or if you have something external that you can take with you, like a stress ball or some little soft, fuzzy piece of fabric that's soothing to you. Just using the things that are within your reach. Also mindfully using one thing, looking around you in your setting and just choosing one thing, whether it's something outside, like the rays of the sun or the trees, or if it's a picture on the wall, and just notice everything. Observe, notice, and describe everything about that. And so that you're giving your full attention to it, and that kind of distracts your mind from whatever it is that has you dysregulated. And then, of course, deep breathing. That's the easiest one, right? Everybody knows, take deep breaths. It's so important to keep your brain fully oxygenated so that you can think clearly and logically and keep yourself calm. So that's an easy one, if nothing else.
And what's the difference between being triggered and simply being upset?
Well, when you feel upset in general, it's about the present moment, something that happened to you, something you experienced, an interaction you had with somebody that was unpleasant. You're upset about that moment. But being triggered means that some of your emotion has to do with the past. So you're not just feeling the current present emotion related to current events, but that's compounded or layered on top of emotion that you have from a long time ago, something that was similar or something that this present moment reminded you of. And
can you explain nervous system regulation in simple terms and why it matters for healing?
When your body feels safe, your mind is able to think clearly, your prefrontal cortex is fully on board and able to think logically about things, and your emotions are regulated and calm so that you can heal and process through and work through things. If your nervous system is dysregulated, your heart rate is erratic or really fast or too slow, your prefrontal cortex might be totally shut down so that you're only thinking about emotion and you're not able to think logically and rationally about things or make good decisions because you're making emotional decisions, not necessarily rational decisions. So that's why the nervous system regulation is so important, because you need your prefrontal cortex to be on board with the processing.
Can the nervous system regulation sometimes be translated as anxiety if your nervous system isn't regulated?
Yes. I think it can feel like anxiety. It can feel like depression. It can be racing thoughts. It can be overthinking. There's so many ways it can show up. And oftentimes we put our focus on what I call the symptom instead of the root of the dysregulation of the nervous system. So yes, I think it can turn into a panic attack. It can be an anxiety attack. It can be overthinking and racing thoughts that turn into insomnia and keep you awake all night. So definitely can show up a lot of different ways.
Wow. And what if someone can't have access to therapy right now? What are safe ways to start healing, and what should they avoid?
Yeah, this is good. I do want to say that there are resources out there. Most communities have a clinic that has a sliding scale or will see you without taking upfront out-of-pocket cost. So you should be able to access therapy. There is also 988, where you can talk to a counselor for free anytime, text or voice, 24/7, no charge. And they will even send a mobile crisis unit out in a lot of areas to talk with you in person or assess you and get you help if needed. So it is available to some extent. But yes, therapy can be expensive, especially if you don't have insurance coverage with mental health benefits. And so that is a problem. What can you do for yourself if you can't access that? So educating yourself from trauma-informed sources. There are lots of great books out there. There are podcasts like this one. There are blog pages and journal articles that you can read and things that you can watch to help you learn how to help yourself. Different things you can try. You can try yoga. You can try EFT tapping. You can try different somatic and breathing exercises. You can find those on YouTube for free. And you can do those yourself, and you can at least be helping your nervous system heal. Journaling is great too.
Yeah, it is.
Doing that cognitive and narrative processing is amazing. So, and then just self-reflecting, thinking about different things as your nervous system can tolerate, because you don't want to cause yourself to get dysregulated. You want to do it as you're able to tolerate. What you want to avoid is forcing yourself to process emotionally or to think through very difficult traumatic events without support. That's one of the things that therapy is so important for. You have that support right there with you to help you go through, to help you know when to stop, to be able to help you regulate if you're not able to regulate yourself. So doing that on your own is not a good idea. Trying to relive the trauma repeatedly, you can end up re-traumatizing yourself if you do that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's definitely not something I would recommend. And then I said that there are lots of podcasts and blog pages and different things out there, but there are also some that will kind of shame you if you don't magically get better. You know, why are you still bothered by this? Why aren't you over this by now? Avoid those kinds of things. There is no shame in the symptoms and the trauma, and everybody has their own process and their own speed of healing, and nobody else has a right to judge that. So be careful of the ones that feel judging or shaming. Healing should feel supportive, not re-traumatizing.
For someone who's stuck in the same situation where they got hurt, and let's say they don't have a way out, how can they help themselves to heal or at least be better while they're still stuck in the same situation?
That's really tough because one of the foundational requirements to really do trauma work is safety. So when someone is not safe, they don't feel like they're in a safe situation, it's almost impossible to do the really deep trauma work. However, there are things that you can do. Like we already said, yoga, somatic movement, breathing, all the things that are healing your nervous system are working. Journaling, whatever you can do that's tolerable. You don't have to go super deep. But you can work on yourself and you can get a level of healing, even in a situation that's not ideal. And then, of course, therapy. If you can go to therapy, if you have that resource available, definitely encourage that. That's going to help you survive and possibly find a way out of whatever situation you're in.
Let's talk about my favorite part, which is self-love, rebuilding, and self-trust.
Yes.
How do you define self-love in a way that goes beyond bubble baths and affirmations?
Self-love is listening to your internal signals and responding with respect. It's not so much about indulging yourself or being selfish, or, you know, sometimes we tell ourselves that, right? I can't love myself because then I'm selfish, or then I'll be conceited or vain or narcissistic or whatever. So it's more about nurturing yourself, taking care of yourself, loving yourself in that way, appreciating who you are and knowing that you have value and worth in and of yourself. That's more what I would consider self-love.
And what does rebuilding self-trust looks like after trauma?
Paying attention to your instincts. Trauma teaches us to ignore our own instincts oftentimes. So starting to trust your own instincts again in increments, noticing them and listening to them, keeping promises to yourself, trying not to betray yourself in small or big ways, and letting your feelings and thoughts inform your decisions instead of ignoring your feelings or being persuaded or pressured by other people to ignore your instincts and your feelings. I think those are some small ways that you can start to rebuild trust.
There are gentle ways to start practicing self-compassion when it feels fake or uncomfortable.
Start in a more neutral position instead of I love myself, which can feel very difficult for some people to say out loud or to even let themselves think. Try something gentler like I'm allowed to be human. I'm allowed to have needs.
Yeah.
This makes sense given what I've been through. I can understand how I am the way I am or how I got to where I am. So compassion, moving toward I completely love and accept myself unconditionally, because it might be too big of a jump to go straight there.
And what's one boundary that often becomes necessary during healing, especially in close relationships?
Oh yeah, this is a good one. I would say limiting access to people who dismiss your experiences or pressure you to move on before you're ready. And I'm a very big proponent of love. I think we should always love as much as we're able to and be loving and kind toward others, right? But sometimes that has to happen from a distance.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have to love people from a distance because being too close to them is harmful to us. So I think it's learning to navigate how much distance do you need for the boundaries with different people.
But let's say the person you're in a relationship with have abandonment issues, and then they feel like if you try to distance yourself, you're abandoning them somehow. How do you deal with such situation?
Well, remember that you're not responsible for other people's feelings. Yeah. That's their abandonment issue. Then it's their responsibility to recognize and work through that. You can't do that for them.
Yeah.
And if you protecting them from feeling that way is harmful to you, then you have to figure out how much harm can you tolerate, if any, in order to do that, right? Because your first responsibility is to yourself and your safety.
Wow.
I know that's kind of hard, isn't it?
It is. Very, very, very. And that leads to boundaries. So what does a healthy boundary actually sound like in real conversations?
Yeah. Well, a healthy boundary should be clear, direct, but respectful and calm.
Yeah.
You don't have to yell a boundary. You don't have to be mean or nasty to set a boundary, right?
Yeah.
You can be kind and respectful. So, for example, if someone is maybe raising their voice too loud and you're uncomfortable with that in a conversation, the conflict is starting to heighten and you're not comfortable, a healthy boundary would be, I'm willing to talk about this. I want to work through this, but not while you're yelling.
Yeah.
Let's take some time to calm down. Let's take 15 and then we'll try to come back and revisit this conversation. Something like that. It's very clear.
Very clear. Yeah. Yeah.
Not
and
mean.
Respectful. Yeah.
Right.
Very respectful as well. And what does repair look like after a conflict for couples or families who want to do better?
I think true repair takes personal responsibility on both parts, ownership of what's your part in it. You know, there's rarely a completely innocent party. Both have a part in it usually. So taking responsibility for your part, having empathy for your partner, for the other person, expressing that, validating their feeling. Like, I can empathize and understand why you feel this way, why you did this, said this, whatever. You might not agree with it, but you can still empathize. That's important for both partners to feel validated. And then change behavior, because an apology without change behavior is really just manipulation. So there has to be the change in behavior.
That's true.
I hear what you say. I'm taking responsibility for my part, and I'm going to take steps to change so that I'm not repeating whatever it is I did in the future. Maybe you may repeat it a little bit as you're changing, right? But it's not going to continue to be a pattern.
Yeah.
Then that means that you weren't really sorry after all.
Yeah.
You're not really trying. So,
can you recommend a book beside yours that people can benefit from?
The Body Keeps the Score is a very in-depth book about trauma and how it affects you on all levels. It's a deep book. It can be a little bit of a difficult read, but packed with information. And if you really want to understand why you are the way you are and all the ways that trauma is affecting you and some of the best ways to heal that, I would recommend The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk.
It's amazing. I'm listening to it for the second time. I really love that book.
Oh, you can read it over and over because there's so much in it.
Yeah,
you
and
can't
every time you listen, you hear something new that you missed the first time.
Right.
I love that book. What about a healing practice you wish everyone tried for 7 days?
Well, speaking of my book, I did create a series of journals that have a daily check-in because I am very passionate about this. I think that builds the habit and it helps us to become more self-aware. So I would recommend a daily check-in with yourself and your nervous system. Whether you just do this mentally or you do this externally, you can do it in an app. There are lots of different apps out there that have the check-in component built into it. And you can make it yourself. You can have a blank page notebook and you're just writing your check-in every day. It doesn't have to be formal. But I did create the series of journals that have the guided steps and the check-in, already typed out. So all you have to do is fill in the blanks. But checking in with yourself, how am I feeling mentally? How am I feeling physically, spiritually, emotionally? How do I feel in my body? To build that awareness within yourself, and also just to kind of monitor and track. I think that's really important in the healing. And as a therapist, I love to do that with my clients. Tracking over time how the symptoms change as different events happen in their life, or as we're working through the trauma and as they're getting better. Hopefully the symptoms are improving. But how do you know if you're not checking in, if you're not tracking it? So,
True. A boundary you had to learn the hard way. Just general, no details needed.
Saying no. Yeah, because I do still struggle with that sometimes, but for a long time, it was almost impossible for me to say no to people. And it became so detrimental to me that I'm giving of all my time and energy and resources, and I don't have enough left for myself. So then I have to go, okay, I got to say no now. So, and that's such a life-saving thing. It's empowering. It's self-protective, and it's healthy.
It is.
It's not bad, but we often tell ourselves, oh, well, that makes me selfish if I say no, or if I won't do this thing that this person's asking me to do. We tell ourselves all these things, but most of them aren't true.
Yeah, that's true. A sentence you'd want every survivor to hear.
You are not irretrievably broken. What happened to you matters, and there is life after trauma.
That's amazing. Well, Dr. Kristi Godwin, thank you for showing people that healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about building a life that isn't controlled by it. Can you please tell everyone where to find you?
Yes, I have a website, kristigodwin.com, KRISTIGODWIN, if you don't know how to spell my name. And I'm on Amazon, and also I have been consulting some with Livin, and I will actually have a Livin AMA on Reddit on Friday morning if anybody's interested in following that.
When I say this is one of my favorite episodes of the Self-Love Lounge, I mean it. Aww. This has been amazing. I've been trying to get this done for the past, 4 months?
Yes.
And it's finally done. We're here. I'm so grateful that I had the chance to have you with me. And thank you again for being my guest. And I appreciate you.
You're very welcome. And I'm honored to be a part of this. And it was a pleasure to talk with you today.
Same here. And for everybody who's listening, thank you for being here with us today. And we're going to end it here. And as we always say, it begins with you and it ends with you. Love you, everyone.